Hello, and we are live. It's your old buddy Piz out here, and I guess I'm going to call this Vlogcast number 9, only this is going to be a very special Vlogcast in which I'm joined by Vincente DiSanti.
Yeah, there you go.
Or Vince, or Vincent,
Yeah,
whatever.
Vinny, whatever works. Pick
I'll,
one.
I'll, I'll call him all of the above during this show.
Go.
So, the director of the upcoming Friday the 13th fan film, Never Hike Alone, and we're going to be talking about that project. We're going to be talking about anything Friday the 13th associated, the legacy of that franchise, on and on and on, so much more. If you guys out there watching have questions for Mr. DiSanti, please leave those in the comment section of the video, or feel free to tweet them to me at Pizal on Twitter. And first and foremost, how are you doing tonight, man? Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Doing well. Been spending all day working, getting stuff ready for Kickstarter. We're on a downtime right now, so I'm really just enjoying the time off and getting ready to shoot again in the spring. It's given us some time to plan out some bigger and better things, so it's good. We're just taking the time off and enjoying it.
Cool. Well, let's plug Never Hike Alone real quick. Where can people out there go and learn about the movie if they're completely new to it? Where can they go learn about it? Where can they go find out about the Kickstarter campaign?
The easiest way to do that is just go to our homepage. That's wompstompfilms.com, WOMPSTOMPfilms.com. There you'll find out information about who we are, about the film Never Hike Alone, and there is a link there to take you straight to the Kickstarter. And there's got even more information about the project, just as far as like how we're making it, like what we're doing with some of our funds, the types of backer rewards that you can get. So any information you need to do, just go to our homepage, and the links are to everything, even our social media sites as well. If you're following us on Instagram or Facebook, those are probably the best ways to keep up with what's going on with the project.
Awesome. Absolutely.
Cool.
Yep. Well, we're here to talk about Never Hike Alone, the Friday the 13th fan film. The key word there is fan. So let's take a step back before we talk about Never Hike Alone. Let's talk about how you discovered Friday the 13th and what kind of impact it had on your life.
I was a youngin'. My dad would rent horror movies from time to time, and like he would bring home stuff like Night of the Living Dead, American Werewolf in London, and my bedroom was downstairs next to the TV room, so I used to sneak out of my room and like kind of hide behind, there's this kind of like lazy boy chair, and I would hide behind the lazy boy chair and lay my head off to the side and watch these movies and get super scared and then run back to my room and dream about monsters all night. And then one night my dad brought home Friday the 13th part 7. I'd never seen a Friday the 13th before, and I leaned my head out from behind the chair, and that first montage came on where it's like a killer buried but never dead, and like, all that stuff. And it was just basically everything Jason from front to back, like all the first 6 movies just like crammed into my like tiny brain, and like my mind was just completely blown. I just watched that entire film. I was blown away. And every time we went to the VHS rental that week, silver screen video, I just did laps around the Friday the 13th franchise, just like watching each one, getting familiar with, all the different films. And then a new one would come out and I'd watch the shit out of that one. And it was just like over and over again. And that's how I got in.
Well, I think it's awesome that you say part 7 was your introduction to the series, because that was my introduction to the series. And I too can remember that opening of part 7 where they basically caught you up with the first 6 movies and then just kind of shot you into part 7 like a cannon, and just being like, blown away. And for me personally, those movies were off limits for me as a kid. Totally off limits for me. My stepdad came home with part 7 on VHS. I was probably 7 or 8. And my mother sort of mildly, objected. And he was like, it's just a movie. The kid wants to watch the movie. Let him watch the movie. So I think it's awesome that both our introductions to the series was part 7.
No,
And
it's one of the better ones. I mean, it's definitely got, ton of memorable scenes, great design of Jason. I mean, that's really where like, Jason has evolved so much that, you got this wide spectrum, and that was really like a strong, end of the spectrum as far as like how Jason was portrayed, how he was made, the way he looked, everything about the tones of the film. I mean, it was all kind of like, it was all on 11 at that point. So that's what's really cool about 7 is that it's firing on a lot of cylinders, and it's such a memorable piece. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, definitely, I think that was the best Jason looked. That was that movie made me want to pay attention to the guy who plays Jason. And like, I never forgot. I saw it that one time. I memorized the name Kane Hodder, and I never forgot it. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, Kane came on and brought in his own thing. I mean, I was always a big fan. My favorite's Part 6. I'm a big C.J. Graham fan, and I love the way that he's kind of portrayed there. I just love Jason in that film. Like, he's such a shark. He's so that's the one that really got to me when I was a kid. Him being trapped at the bottom of the lake at the end of the film. Like, I grew up on a lake, so I used to think that Jason was out there because of that film. So I used to really, I mean, it wreaked havoc with my little brain. I should have never watched that film, but here we are, however many years today, talking about it, and it just goes to show you like how much fun they were.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And C.J. Graham's performance, to me, he was almost like he was so like athletic in that movie. Like, when people think of Jason, they think of him being very stiff or bulky, but he was just very sort of athletic. And I love the fact that he had this almost like utility belt of things he was throwing at people and stabbing people. I always admired Part 6 too for its sense of humor. It was such a funny movie as well,
Yeah, Tom McLaughlin brought a lot of dark humor in that film, and brought it, but really the films have always been funny. I mean, think about Crispin Glover, and I forget the other actor's name, Teddy and Jimmy in Part 4. I mean, great stuff. They've all Shelley. I mean, the guys in Part 2, even our jokesters in Part 1. There's always a nice comedic element of Friday the 13th films that that really has to be played up to. There's a legacy there, as well as having the oddball character, having the fun guy. I think that just to have that tone throughout the entire film, I mean, there's so many like great jokes, like when when Tommy's head goes in her lap around the corner, she's like, there's going to be a hairy corner, like stuff like that. It was just like, oh, you know what? That's, it's kind of firing on that level. It's fun. It's like eating a cheeseburger. It's just such a great experience.
Yeah, definitely. And keeping in mind the fun aspect. And I've had this conversation with people before, like the Paramount 8, those 8 Friday the 13th movies, whether they're good or bad, they're fun and they're watchable. And I think one of the major problems with the remake, for instance, it's a perfectly fine slasher movie. It's just not fun. It doesn't have that fun rewatchability aspect, at least for me. What do you think of like the new line Friday the 13th movies? Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, Freddy versus Jason, the remake, etc.
Well, I will start off with saying Jason X was the first ever film I got to see in the theater, and it was like a really great experience for me. I mean, the movie is like, it's on the back end of its career as far as that sense. People weren't really paying attention to Friday the 13th anymore. The budgets, even starting at Part 8, the way that they just squeezed them down and kind of, brought the the scope of the films into much more. Jason X kind of falls victim to that. It's kind of got some cheap sets, and it's kind of hokey in a lot of different places. But I had a lot of fun. It was a high concept film. It was something way different outside the spectrum. I think that we look back on parts 1 through 7 now with such fondness, but I'm sure back in 1988, after 7 films in a row, like 10 Fast and Furious films, people were probably like, God, another one? Like, what are they, like, they're going to keep making them like this? So I understand that they changed them. Some of them are good. Like Jason Goes to Hell, I could never get into that film. I really appreciate like the level of like craziness they did to like make that film, but it just blows my mind. I'm like, how? Blow up Jason? I'm like, no. I mean, for me, like, I love Part 5, even though I know it's Roy. just the fact that he's wearing a hockey mask. I think when they removed that whole thing, and they moved the hockey mask, and they made it the body jump and demon snake and all that different stuff, and they added like the family members and all that, it just got really convoluted. Like I did like Camp Crystal Lake in that world. It was kind of a funny world that was like meta in a way, that it like knew that it was like the home of like a mass murderer. You know, there's something kind of cool to that, to explore like what the world would do if they found out Jason Voorhees existed. I just wish it played out a little bit differently. I wish Jason could have stayed on screen. They could have done other ways to bring him back and just have him be him. Because aside from that, I mean, it's kind of fun. I mean, Creighton Duke is kind of one of the best characters in the series. I mean, he's you know, he's great. Well, go ahead.
Jason Goes to Hell was actually the first one I saw in the theater.
Oh,
so I'm kind of prejudiced toward it. Prejudice isn't the right word. It has a special place in my heart because it was the first one I saw.
It's your guilty pleasure. We all have a guilty pleasure, and people who love Jason Goes to Hell probably hate A New Beginning, and I love A New Beginning for everything it represents. And I understand why people hate it. Like I'm like, yeah, no, I get it. I don't care. I love it.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned Part 5. I love Part 5.
Yeah.
With I just love.
I think I'm starting to lose my signal here a little bit. I'm sorry, buddy.
Did I kind of lag up a little bit there?
Yeah, we're a little lagged. Are you back now? I think you're starting to move.
There we go. Yeah,
all right.
The lag may have been on my end. I apologize. But what I was saying was I love Part 5. I love it with every fiber of my being. People who follow my channel know how much I love Part 5.
Cool.
I think it's the characters, it's the dialogue. There's just a genius behind that movie, I think. Just a mad, maybe a little coked up genius, but a genius nevertheless. You know what I mean?
It's the 80s. I mean, you're going to get what you're going to get with that. But I think, like, for me, because I watched Friday the 13th as a kid. So I think watching it as a kid, you really glom on to Tommy Jarvis, Corey Feldman, bringing him in, having that, through the eyes of a child, that's the character you associate with. So watching Tommy's arc, when you're able to just sit back and go 4, 5, 6 in one day rather than watch 5 and wait 2 years for the next one to come out, in context, it handles itself better. It kind of makes sense as far as like where that character goes, and you feel for him. I think that's kind of what's cool. That's why I love Part 6. You feel for Tommy because he's still dealing with this. He's the only character to ever make that return. So, I think that's what makes that really special was adding that, personal, vendetta in there that you could really only do with a character that spans multiple timelines.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you said Part 6 is your favorite of the series. What sort of impact did the movies have on you growing up, and as a filmmaker now, what was the impact of the series on you?
Well, I always liked making films. Like I ran outside with my parents' handycam and made stuff for school. I was always doing video projects for one thing or another. And watching Friday the 13th, it was the only really series that I watched that had so many continuity errors. Most films don't go that many, so like you don't really notice it. But for a film to go through 8 films, there were so many things that were different. I always ask the reason why. It's like, why does he look different every film? Why is it so vast? Like, what is going on? Why does it work that way? And asking those questions, it was like, turn me on to the world of filmmaking. There are certain people responsible for certain things, and this is how it's broken up. And I hired this guy for this film, but it's not the same guy the second film. It's not always the same people making it. It's completely different teams in completely different areas of the country, depending on, who's giving the tax write-off that week. You know what I mean? So, they were out there doing the productions as cheaply and quickly as they could with whatever teams they could build. And that's what they did. And so to learn about that, I was like, I want to do that. That sounds like a lot of fun. That's what I do. I just make films in my backyard. I can do this for a living? Cool. So, I really just kind of pursued it in college and moved out here, after I graduated, and just got into the industry and been working in it ever since. And, I've been working towards making my own films and doing stuff like that. So, that's where I am today because I was so interested in how those films get made and why they were made the way they were made.
That's totally understandable. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about Never Hike Alone. How did that project come about? What was the genesis of Never Hike Alone?
The genesis was really me trying to build my own cosplay costume. I was, I was out there, I bought a few supplies and stuff like that, a hood and a mask, and went out and started taking some photos. And I was out there with my wife, and we ran the camera a couple times to see what it looked like when we were in motion. And, it was at that time where I was like, what, I bet we could make a pretty cool Friday the 13th short if we put our minds to it. Like, let's come up with an idea. And we started to develop it. And, it took a long time for it to come to fruition. What started as kind of a simple idea grew and grew and grew because as I was moving through the industry and trying to put this thing together, I just kept meeting more and more people. And every time I told somebody about the project, somebody else was now working on it. We went and shot that first trailer after maybe 2 years of kind of talking about it and doing a couple things and trying a couple things out, and said, you know what, I think that, if we go this route with it, that will be our best chance. Like that would actually be like a nice little impactful film. So let's go make a trailer. Let's see if anybody would dig it. And if people like it, then we'll go make it. And so we went out and we shot the trailer. That took it was a weekend of shooting out in the mountains. And then we did another one in the trails in the Santa Monica forest. It was just me and the lead actor. We put all those shots together, cut the trailer, released it, got a pretty good reception. And while we were shooting that trailer was when we discovered the abandoned camp. So when we discovered the abandoned camp, that kind of changed everything. We realized that we had a bigger film at our feet if we chose to try and take down that whale. So that's what we did. We went after it, and we tried to do the Kickstarter last fall, and we asked for maybe a little bit too much. But that ended up getting more attention for us, and somebody helping us make what we made last fall that we released for this campaign, the new trailer. And that's, when we put a little bit more money and time into it, that's what it looks like. The first trailer was us just doing it over a weekend. What we put that trailer together, which we have scenes that we've shot. We didn't just shoot trailer material. We were able to capture about 80%, and it all looks like that.
Excellent. Well, what's the, it seems like such a major undertaking. Did you sit down, and how did you sort of plan this thing out? You know what I mean? You're making a fan Friday the 13th movie. You need money, you need actors, you need equipment. You know what I mean? What's the process? What's the planning process like?
It's immense. Kind of project? It's immense. It takes so much planning. It takes so much prep. There's a lot that goes into it. Luckily, I've had fortunate, enough times in my career to work on some really great projects with some really great people. And through meeting all those people, you usually end up talking to somebody and being like, hey, if I ever make something, we should get together and we should talk about it. And after a few years of that, really started to realize that I was surrounded by friends who were talented filmmakers, and all we needed was a reason to go out and do stuff together. So, it really started with Andrew, who's the lead actor. I worked with him on a film called Rock Dog, about 3 or 4 years ago. He was a PA while I was there managing that film. And, we talked about horror all the time, and he's an up and coming actor. And I said, you know what, you'd be great in a Friday the 13th film. Look at you. You look like, every jock I've ever seen in every film. And dude, you're a stud. We should put you in a film and just completely murder the shit out of you. And he was like, yes, let's do it. I'm totally down. And ever since then, me and him have really, I put as much of this project on his shoulders as I can. To say, here, this is what we want to do to you. This is who we think your character is. This is what we want you to do. And he does it all with a smile on his face. And I think really that relationship drives everything else. I've known Kyle, the producer, for a very long time. Chris, I met through making, a bunch of other shorts, and then there's JD and John, who are really the core group. My wife's the editor. And really between us, we're able to get a majority of everything that we need. Then once we expanded, it was, I went and did a 48-hour film festival. I met a bunch of filmmakers through that, people who were out there grinding out films every couple months and doing stuff. Really, that's how I met the Iron Relic team, the stunt team that came in and did work for us. And then it's really just like who you pull one person on, you find out somebody else wants to help you out. And you just build your team from there. It's really just about creating those relationships.
Well, and I imagine a lot of people are working for free and working in their free time. So, it really has to be, a passion project. I think of the movie, the American Movie. Have you seen that documentary? He starts with like a big crew on week 1, and then by week 3, there's 3 people sitting in a conference room.
Yep.
So that's kind of what I imagine with like a very small film, is that you have a lot of people anxious and eager to do it at first. Then they see how much work it is, or that it's taking up too much time, and then they just they stop showing up.
Yeah, well, for us, it started with a small team, and it goes with a small team. And when we need to go out and get those guys like the stunt department, and we need to go out and put extra hands, we just kind of say, hey, give us a weekend. And we're able to put together that weekend and kind of go from there and schedule it around our lives. But the core group on this film, we don't do it for money. We literally, we climb in a van every weekend. We go up and we shoot what we can. Most of the equipment we shoot with is our own. Or we rent what we need, like lighting equipment and things like that. But we really try to be as, cost effective as possible, but put our best thinking caps on and figuring out how we can get it done. Most of what we raised last fall was able to pay to build the set and do everything that we needed to do. Now it's just a matter of us showing up and capturing it shot by shot.
Well, I imagine too, you talked about the location and about finding that abandoned camp, and we talked a little bit before the show about some of the weird things that were inside of it. How inspiring is that as a filmmaker when you find these little areas, or you always hear about, especially on low budget films, the happy accidents, or if there's a will, there's a way kind of filmmaking. Tell us a little bit about, the locations. Tell us a little bit about that camp that you found. How inspiring is it from, a filmmaking point?
It was
when you.
Yeah, it was really great. When the first time we pulled up into the camp, I'll never forget it. We heard stories about it, but you never know until you get there. And just walking through the entire camp, you could feel a sense of history already there, and we knew that our challenge was going to be, how do we capture that sense of history that's here? How do we make it feel like, we've gone back in time? Not to say that we're time traveling, but it feels, when you find a place that hasn't been touched in 30 years, you feel like you've been transported to another world. And really, it was just about kind of sharpening the focus on it, really. Everything was there, the broken glass, the busted boards, the broken doors, and, all the muck and all that crap that's everywhere was just, it had that feeling. And it was about, all right, all we need to do is, change the lens on this and turn this into Camp Crystal Lake. Well, what can we do? And where should our character go? And what should he find? And what should he see? And it completely changed the script. A lot of our experience of just walking around that camp, the way we found it, all of that stuff ended up going into the script. It's really, there's like two tales kind of going on. It's this film, and then it's how we made the film. And, our character goes through some of the same, arcs and challenges that we went through. But it's fun to watch him do it and mess with it. And, and we just, we've really just lucked into it, and we just tried to make the best of a great opportunity. And, we were thankful for that every day. That's why and that's partly why we wanted to give back through the Penny Pines Foundation, was because, we felt like we stumbled across this thing. There's something we got to do, and, we should pay it back somehow.
What was that foundation?
It's called the Penny Pines Reforestation Program. It runs out of the Forest Service here in California, and they help, help revive areas of the forest that have been either burned down or succumbed to like different diseases that infect the trees and kill them. So they clear out those areas and they replant seeds to make sure that, they're there in 50 years still instead of kind of, rotting away.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's excellent. How long have you been working on the film at this point? And is it one of those, we hear about it, we have the money, we shoot, or, it's one of those sort of, it happens in spurts,
We've been filming pretty steady since the beginning of September. And because we were all working 9-to-5 jobs, it was every weekend. So we'd leave every Friday night, we'd shoot Saturday, Sunday, we'd drive home Sunday night and end up back at work Monday morning. We did one big long weekend that we were able to do all of our night shoots. Then we brought up our lights. That's what we raised most of our money for. And then continued until it started to snow. And once the snow became too abundant, we put everything to a halt. And we're just waiting for it to melt, and then we're going to finish up in the spring.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, to kind of answer your question, it was more about, we went as fast as we could, not being able to take, people not being able to take off from work and do those things because we are doing this for free. It just takes a little bit longer in that regard. But, we just kind of knock out what we can and do it. And you're seeing that work in the trailer about how it kind of all connects together. And, it's looking great. It's looking consistent. So we're happy about it.
Well, and if anybody out there has not seen the trailers for Never Hike Alone, they're on YouTube. By all means, go check them out. They are really cool. So basically what I'm trying to get at here is that this is a labor of love. This is something that you're not making money from. This is something that it's your free time that you're using. You're working all week, weekend, this movie, and then Monday morning. What I'm trying to get at is that it is a labor of love.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And we're all doing it, it's just, 5-6 friends going out every weekend and doing what we love. We love this. I joke and say, like, some people get together every weekend and they spend how much money to go play golf. Like, this is our golf. This is what we'd rather do. We'd rather, like, instead of yelling at a white ball all day, we'd just rather walk away with really cool footage that we can cut together and make movies with. So, we have a fun time out there, and, so many memories just from going out and shooting. That's the best part.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, do you feel any pressure to kind of deliver? This is a fan film. You being a fan, that there's lofty expectations, that fans have lofty expectations, sometimes unreasonable expectations. What kind of pressure do you feel to deliver a really quality film?
Well, I can tell you that nobody puts more pressure on me than I do. Anybody who knows me would say that. I really try to hold myself to the highest standard that I can. Obviously we're a fan film. We're working with, restrictions. There's certain things we can't do. There's certain things we just can't throw money at. We got to figure it out. But I think that we're going to deliver something that fans, like true fans, should really appreciate. And it's going to look good. Andrew's a great actor. I can't wait to see him, in the whole film. I think he's really going to carry it. I think people are really going to like him. I think our Jason action is going to be a little different. I think people are going to like it. There's some things we've come up with that are unexpected. And then, at the end of it, we're going to try and deliver the gore factor as best we can. We know we're only working with one guy. We've heard we've already heard the complaints about, it's fan footage. It's only one guy. Woe is me. Well, it's 22 minutes long as a minimum. And yeah, there's one guy, but that one guy gets the crap kicked out of him. And we found ways to make it, to really play that out. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Andrew goes through hell. Right. His stunt double, Donnie Nichols, did an amazing job when we tossed him around and bounced him off trees and, smashed him against stuff. It's really good. This character is going to fight for his life. And it's, I don't think we've ever seen a character quite fight Jason like this. Maybe since Jules in part 8, but it's going to last a little bit longer than that. So, I think that's going to be like the really exciting part. And that's what I'm excited to bring. And we're going to see what that looks like. And, people are going to love it or hate it. But you know what? people are going to keep making them, and we'll just add a long line of stuff that keeps coming. But we hope we set a certain standard and show people that, hey, you're not that far from making one of these yourselves. You know, if you want to put the time in, you know, you want to like really study and do it and you know, and set those goals, do it. You know, who's stopping you? Just, you know, do it right. You know, make sure you're doing it with the right intentions. Do it with your friends. Walk away with something you love. I mean, there's so many Friday the 13th fans out there with theories about everything. It's like you can either wait for New Line or Paramount or Warner Brothers to pick your idea, or you can just make it yourself, you know? So you never know.
Yeah. Well, you know, we've talked for like half an hour, and I've not even asked you sort of what the plot of the movie is. What's the movie? Where does this movie take place in the timeline? What's the plot? What's going on in Never Hike Alone?
In Never Hike Alone, we're basically existing. It's like in a parallel universe, I would say. I would say it took place after part 8, but there's one key factor that we left out that, you know, that kind of hamstrung our idea, which was the concept of Camp Forest Green. So in our world, you know, part 1 happened. The events of part through part 8 happened in some way, shape, or form. Jason ran amok, but in no shape and time did the camp ever get reopened or retouched. Once it closed in 1980, it was closed for good. No one ever went back there. No one would ever dare go back there. The citizens of Crystal Lake know that that place is no good and have made sure that no one else will try and find it. So our character is just, you know, he's like kind of like, we keep calling him like YouTube sensation. He's got like a couple thousand followers. He goes hiking every weekend. He tells people about his trips. He tracks his things. He rates trails. He does stuff like that. He's got a little following. And one day he's out on another trail, another trip out in New Jersey, and he finds a trail that's not on the map. And he decides to follow it to see what happens. And eventually that trail leads him out to Camp Crystal Lake. And for him, he sees it as kind of a great golden opportunity to, you know, boost the ratings on his show. You know what I mean? Like, he's going to be out there. He can, you know, show all this stuff off. He can act like a little detective and go around and see what's still there. And in the process of that, you know, tells us about the story and what it means to that time. And, you know, I talk to friends now and people I know now, and I say, hey, what do you know about Jonestown? What do you know about Charles Manson? Like, what do you know about the details? And really, like, people can only say a couple of vague things about each subject, and then they don't really know. So our character is a pretty typical millennial. Like, yeah, he knows about Pamela. He knows about Friday the 13th, but everything else, you know, was always considered a legend, always considered lore. And as you get older and the more cynical you get, obviously those things can't be real. Undead people don't walk around and murder people. That's just not how life goes. And I'm not scared of this place. This place is a place, you know, this is a place to be explored. This is a great discovery. Like, I shouldn't be scared. And in the middle of that, you know, learns his lesson for, you know, going down the wrong path and, you know, going in too deep and letting curiosity take over. And that's when he runs into Jason. And then from there, it becomes a survival movie. You see a guy who's walked out into the middle of the forest, who's nowhere near any sort of help. And he finds himself in the middle of the forest with no equipment, with no way to protect himself against Jason Voorhees. And so he has to find his way out. And that's where, you know, the meat of the film takes place. And, you know, we gave it a good setup. And then from there, it's, will he survive? It's, you know, a final girl sequence to the max.
Mm-hmm. That sounds really fun. That sounds great. And like I said, the trailer, if you guys haven't seen the trailer, go check out the trailer. There's 2. Check them out. It looks fantastic. It looks fantastic.
We released a 3rd one, a little 30-second teaser. Did you see that one too?
No, I've only seen the first 2.
All right, check out the YouTube page. You'll see our 30-second teaser. It's fun. So it's a nice little short, but it gives you a little bit closer look at Jason.
What is your YouTube channel?
Womp Stomp Films.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we were able to secure that across the board, so that was nice.
I also just realized you mentioned that part 6 was your favorite. I actually happen to be wearing this part 6 Alice Cooper Jason mashup.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
So, one thing I have to ask you though, and I'm sure a lot of people have probably had this similar question when you're doing a fan film or even when they're looking at this project, when you're doing a movie like this to avoid copyright issues, did you have to get the approval of anyone to use Jason's likeness in the film or the score? for instance, anything like that? Did you have to go down any channels to avoid any kind of legalities?
I mean, basically, not so much going down channels, but doing my research. Fan films are definitely a specific bunch. There are rules that you should follow if you're going to do a fan film. You know, the first and foremost is do not do it for profit. Do not do it to get people paid. That's not, you will get slapped for that. You know, you got to keep your vision in check. This isn't $1 million feature. You know, you got to keep it under $50,000. And everything you do and everything you say, no matter what you're doing, you have to put fan film in your title. And we make sure that we get those big three along with other things. And, you know, really just following those rules. We're just keeping our head low. We're just doing what we're doing. The internet's kind of creating a pretty good buzz right now, but you know, we have a pretty good feeling that we're getting out of Platinum Dunes' way. We don't mean to step on their toes. If anything, we're trying to add to the excitement of this year. You know, we kind of talked about it before. The game's coming out. Never Hike Alone comes out. The feature film comes out. You know, and who else, you know, and with that, a slew of toys and, you know, new figures and, you know, things to talk about. You know, that it's not just going to be this year. It's going to be years to come that we're going to talk about the films that are going to be released and the games and how they can be better or what they got right and what they got wrong. And, you know, that was good, but that sucked. And, you know, we're going to go on and on about it for years, and everyone's going to have a different opinion. And that's what keeps the Friday the 13th franchise going, is that discussion. That's why we're all still here. We get together online all the time and talk about it. And we have a great time doing it. I mean, sometimes it gets a little out of hand, I think, but you know, but I think
it gets a little heated. It gets heated.
It's a little heated. I mean, people are passionate about it. And how many franchise can you say that people are that passionate about it? There's something to say about it, and no, there's nothing to explain. It's just like the series. There's nothing to explain. It just is what it is, and you're either in it or you're not in it. And that's what Never Hike Alone is about. It's like, you know what? This is a film for Friday the 13th fans. I'm not thinking about anybody else. If you don't know anything about part one or you don't know anything about the series, that's fine. You might watch this and still enjoy it. But the people who are really going to get a kick out of it are fans, you know, because they're going to recognize things. They're going to see that we took things into consideration, you know, little details, you know, the little things that you can look at. You know, you can watch the film a couple times and hopefully you pick up on some things. I think if people start watching the trailer over and over, you'll pick up on a couple small details that we captured, you know, the way we decorated certain places and things like that. You're going to see that, you know, we're encompassing the entire Friday the 13th story in this, you know, 22-minute short. And, you know, there's a lot there, you know, I think they're going to be really happy with it. I'm really excited.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what is it about the Friday the 13th series has captivated fans for almost 4 decades? You know, why has that series had such longevity and has just, you know, you said it, you know, it's one of the few horror franchises. It's probably the most identifiable horror movie franchise because if you show anybody a hockey mask, whether they've seen a Friday the 13th movie or not, they go, oh, that's the Jason guy.
Yeah.
What is it about this series that's just sort of ingrained itself in pop culture that's given it the longevity that it has?
Honestly, I think you already said it. I think it's that hockey mask. I think when you look at, you know, what I consider the big four, which are Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, you got Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, and you look at Hellraiser, you know, Pumpkinhead, you know, all the way down to Critters and all these films that had all these different franchises. You know, you look at a recognizable figure, which people were, you know, looking and going to see. And, you know, Jason just takes that mantle. He's the fan favorite. There are more fans of Jason than there are of anyone else. I mean, you can argue for Michael Myers, you can argue for Freddy Krueger, but Jason's fans are loyal, and we love these movies. We love slasher films. We love I mean, did you see The Final Girls, which was a great, like, meta view of slasher films? That was great. You know, Psych did Tuesday the 17th, which was a great meta view of Friday the 13th. A friend just recently showed that to me. I mean, like, you know, you like it because of for everything that it is and all of its faults, and that's what really gets you into it. And it's such a diverse series. You have so many different films and different styles. You have the first one, and you know, you can really say that, like, Fifth was the last of the originals. Then Six started this new chain of undead zombie films. Not a zombie. He's not a zombie. He doesn't eat brains. Before somebody slaps me, actually. So you have that, and then New Line takes over and just like spins that off the rails. Like just goes in every direction they could. Finally get Freddy versus Jason. Platinum Dunes comes in and gets slapped for trying to ground it back into reality. And some of the things they did worked, and some of the things they didn't. But at least it felt like Jason was returning back to where he belonged. And I think with the new one that's coming out, I can't wait. It just sounds like they're going straight undead, and they're not going to mess around, and it's going to be brutal, and they're going to give us, I hope that they're kind of making something that comes between like a part 7 and a part 6. Like just something that's just like relentless undead mayhem. Don't spend too, like, I know they're going to do some of the backstory, but once that's out of the way, I just hope that it's interesting and that the characters are funny and it's likable and enjoyable. And, it's just a nice cheeseburger and we get to enjoy a ride, again, for the 13th time.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the big here from fellow fans is, I hope they don't overthink things. Just want to see Jason doing what Jason does best. We know the backstory. Don't need a footage. Or, we just want Jason doing what Jason does best.
Yeah. No, I think
we'll love it. Give us that and sprinkle in some of the fun factor that the remake didn't have, and we'll love you forever.
Yeah, we'll see. I think they got a really good team. I'm a big fan of Breck Eisner. I think The Crazies was a great film. Like, I even enjoyed Last Witch Hunter. It's actually, Michael Caine, Elijah Wood. Vin Diesel. It's such an interesting cast. So I think they did a really good job with that. And, Guzanowski writing, I think I said that right. I don't know. But him writing Prisoners. And in fact, I found out that he's not far. He grew up not far from me in Brockton. I actually grew up in Massachusetts, not far from him. So it's fun. Like to hear like a Massachusetts guy wrote the new Friday the 13th is like, all right, yeah, go Mass. So it's pretty exciting.
This is something that I ask a lot of people too. Earlier of those first 8, the Paramount 8. Can they recreate in the future, or do you think, I guess the ultimate question is, what's the future of the series? And, they've tried to recreate some things from the 80s films that didn't quite work. They kind of tried for Greg. And what does their here?
Well, I think for the future of the series, what you're looking at is really, it's definitely going to go 2 different ways. You have Platinum Dunes, who has the rights right now, and they're obviously out to make big blockbuster films. They want to bring in as many people as possible. And as as a Friday the 13th fan, we've all got, suggestions and, requests that we'd like to see. But a lot of them, quite frankly, and you'll hear a lot of people talk about it, like John Squire said it the other day on Twitter, a lot of those ideas just aren't mass market ideas. You're not going to see some of those things in the theater. They're not going to spend a lot of time going back and saying, just trying to hit the 80s, because what you're going to end up saying to somebody who's investing all this money into the film, saying, well, now you're probably going to limit your audience. Maybe they buy into the idea, maybe they don't. But I think what I'm trying to prove with Never Hike Alone is that maybe not all these ideas need to go to the theater. Maybe not every idea needs to be a $20 million production that becomes a big risk every time you try to make it happen. You spend 20 on, making the film and another X amount of million, promoting it, to make smaller budget content and release it online for fans that they'll come out and see. Charge a lot less, make them within our type of budget kind of constraints, but make them high concept and tackle some of those things that fans will go after. Because I think that would be a great way to feed that need that fans have, and would be a lot of fun to explore, to give people to, learn a little bit more about Pamela, learn a little bit more about Jason, do those things and tell different stories, bring back some of the old cast when it calls for it. You know, that's where it's going to happen. I think if people are waiting for it to happen in the theater, it's just never going to come. But if they support films like Never Hike Alone, what they're saying is, yes, we'll take our favorite franchise in bites like this and we'll watch them and enjoy them. Give us more, please. And maybe at that time, Paramount can step in and start thinking about a series that could be released to YouTube, that could be streamed on a Hulu, that could be doing those things and supply that need and that demand that's there. You know, that's the difference that's kind of that with the internet and the way that films work now, is that to get to the theater, you have to walk in there with a blockbuster. And the goal is to walk out of there with $1 billion. And not every film or franchise is going to get that. And so when you have these small films trying to step toe to toe with Avengers and, you know, and Star Wars and things like that, it's, you know, even Friday the 13th can stack up there with them. I mean, it's the only franchise that you can really think of other than, you know, maybe Halloween that could step up there and take a big chunk out of a weekend. But the idea is to keep them coming back. So if there's a way to keep them coming back, the internet is the place to do it. And so when you go to the theater and you take that big whack, you can be as high concept and do whatever you want. Like whatever the filmmakers do, whoever the rights holder are, whatever they think is the $20 million version of the next Friday the 13th, by all means, go make it. But don't restrict fans from seeing some of the stuff they want to see. You know, kind of acknowledge that and give it to them both. I mean, everything's so off canon now anyway. Might as well let somebody explore previous canon. Let somebody do like a true part 9. You know what I mean? That'd be kind of cool. Will we ever see that in the big theater? No, but I bet you'd see a great fan film or a great indie film that would be released, you know, straight to Netflix. That would be a great part 9.
Yeah.
What happened to them? What happened after you spit out of the back of that drain? We'll get you back. We'll be swimming. I mean, we can do it all from Jason's perspective, and you can do whatever you want. That's the best thing about shorts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. They've had all this time between the remake and now. You know, if the business model were still like the 80s, where they can throw a couple of million at a movie and be okay with it bringing back 20 million. You know, they could have done one of these like every year up to now. We could be on Friday the 13th number 20 at this point. But, you know, they want a bigger investment for a bigger payoff. So, you know, give us that special, you know, let's bridge the gap between 8 and 9. How did Jason get back to Crystal Lake? Exactly. Give us that in a Netflix movie. You know, where's Tommy Jarvis now? Give us that in a Netflix movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everybody wants to return to Tommy, huh?
Yeah, you know, Tom Matthews would do it, I'm sure, you know.
Yeah, probably.
I'm sure Feldman would. Feldman would be right there.
Yeah, I know. They've said it. You know, I think a lot of that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of these, you go to the conventions, you know, one of our volunteers is like a convention junkie. I've never seen somebody with so many signatures in my entire life. I was like, wow, dude, you are committed. And he's met everybody. And, you know, I hear stories about like, you know, that come out of the conventions about the final girls want to do a movie to take down Jason and do all that stuff. And why not? You know what? Let's have fun. Let's just do the ideas and have it be out there and we'll all enjoy it. You can do a Friday the 13th channel, you know, all Friday the 13th all the time. Any crazy idea anyone has, it can get produced and we'll all go and watch it. Some will do better than others, but it will be a community of people, you know, giving back to you know what we do, and we can talk about it and have fun talking about it. Yeah.
Well, I know all about being a convention geek. If you see that Friday the 13th poster back there,
I can see it, man.
It's got about $500 worth of signatures on it. So I mean, nice. I've met just about everybody from that first one. So and we've got part 5 there with the late Danny Steinman's signature.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, final chapter right next to it with tons of signatures. I mean, I'm that convention geek who's like, you know, Mr. Savini, will you sign this? So
yeah. Well, you and Christian, our PA, would get along very well then. You guys can whip it out and measure out your signatures. Who's got more?
Well, let's share with us where can people go to learn about Never Hike Again? Where can people go to donate to the Kickstarter? What can people get back from the Kickstarter if they choose to donate?
Well, if you go to Kickstarter, just search for Never Hike Alone. Our campaign will come up. Again, you can also go to our website, wompstompfilms.com, WOMPSTOMP films.com. There's a link to the Kickstarter there. You can watch our trailer. You can also watch the video that explains what we're about and why we're raising money to finish the film. If you choose to back the film, we got plenty of stuff. We have pins, stickers, T-shirts, posters, a grab bag with everything. We offer 2 different T-shirts, a Never Hike Alone crew shirt and also a Camp Crystal Lake T-shirt based on the logo from our trailer. Higher tiers will bring home some props, some actual screen use props, Jason's axe, Jason's machete, some of the stuff that Kyle uses in the film, and like all the signs from around the camp that we built and all the old memorabilia that's there. That's all up for grabs. The higher tiers come with production credit, so anyone who really wants to seriously invest in the film, we will reward you with a production credit. You'll be a part of the team. You'll be welcomed into earlier meetings and see earlier screenings of it and give notes. And then the last thing that we do offer is the full costume with an executive producer credit and also a chance to be in the film. So we're auctioning off a scene that we would put at the end of the film to be in it.
Okay, I'm gonna float this idea to you right now. Okay. How much money to get Jason to do the Crispin Glover dance in the movie?
Oh, to do that? Oh, I mean, we might just do that for free. we got some great behind the scenes material of stuff that we've done. So, and we got to go back it out and get more and stuff in April. So we're definitely planning to do some stuff and have some fun.
That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. Final pitch. What can fans expect from Never Hike Alone? Sell us on Never Hike Alone.
What fans are going to get is it's going to bring Jason back to that fear of isolation, of being stuck mano a mano with Jason. He's on your heels, and just the stress and trepidation that goes into that situation. We wanted to milk that for everything it's worth. And then execute it with high-level stunts, some real fighting. I mean, we beat the crap out of our actors, and they go toe-to-toe, and they really fight. And the end, like, the best part is the ending. I hope you guys are going to love it. It's going to be big. We're going all out, and we want to give you something that you'll walk away, being like, yeah, that belongs as a footnote within the franchise. And, that's what we want to do, is a nice little love letter to the fans.
That sounds great. That sounds awesome. So again, if you guys are interested in Never Hike Alone, check out the trailers on YouTube. They're awesome. Check out Womp Stomp Films on Facebook. You'll find a lot of information there. Womp Stomp Films. Is it wompstompfilms.com?
Yep.
Wompstompfilms.com. There you'll learn all about the Kickstarter. Yeah, it looks like a phenomenal project. You guys know I'm a huge, there you go, Womp Stomp Films.
There you go.
You guys know I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan, and I'm psyched about this project. The trailers look amazing, and yeah, I can't wait to check it out. So,
thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man, and big thanks to everybody out there who tuned in and watched with us. We appreciate it, and we're going to sign off. Keep your eyes peeled for more news on Never Hike Alone on all of their social media, and on mine as well. I'm going to keep track of it as well. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining me tonight, Vinny.
Thank you for having me.
You guys have a great night. We'll see you. Peace.